whenever you made a lie, no matter how big or how small the lie was, to let us know that you lied during that conversation. And so what did they learn? They learned that researchers told us that 60% of the people tell an average of 2 to 3 lies during a 10-minute conversation. And that's regardless of whether you were the control group or whether you were trying to appear likable or competent. So the control group even lied as well. Some people went so far as to lie saying that they were the star of a rock band. And some people's lies were small in that they just agreed that they liked someone that the other person liked. Like somebody said, I like Taylor Swift, and they said, oh, I like her too, right? Whether you did or you didn't, they lied about it, right? Do men lie more often than women? What do you think? Anybody got a thought? No? Okay. The answer to that is no, but they lie in different ways, okay? And I'll tell you how. Women actually lie, sorry about that, women lie to make others feel good, right? So we tell another woman that she looks good in her outfit or whatever, but men lie to make themselves look better, okay? But we all have our reasons, right? But why do we lie exactly, right? We said we lie, but we said we consider ourselves honest people, and what's really happening is our human values are in conflict with each other. And so when you value, honesty, but then you also value somebody else's feelings, maybe you tell them something that's not necessarily, it's a white lie, that they look great today, or, no, that haircut looks great on you, because we don't want somebody to feel bad. So we tell a white lie and we think it's innocent enough, right? And so we still consider ourselves to be honest. But basically, our values are in conflict and we make that trade-off and we decide it's probably okay to tell a white lie or to tell a lie because it makes somebody else feel good. We rationalize it. So honesty doesn't always win when these conflicts happen. So we've admitted that we're a room full of honest liars. Who do you think's taking your surveys? It's a little scary, isn't it? We're also living in what is a post-truth world, right? We have alternative facts and fake news in our media every day, and I'm saying media in general. It's on the internet, it's on Facebook, it's on social media. We have our own personal biases. And we like to put what is truth to us, what we believe to be true, whether it's truth or not, or whether it's well-researched, we like to put those things on social media, right? So that exacerbates the problem, right? Everything's not peer-reviewed anymore. It's not in a journal. We take some of the things that you see. If you hear a rumor 3 times, it must be true, right? So if you see something in 3 different print sources, then it must be true. And you're seeing things over and over and over again because we have the capability of posting whatever we want when we want. There's also a gap right now that's widening between our individual knowledge, how much we personally know and how much collectively the world knows. And I saw a term that I thought was very interesting, and it was called infobesity. And it's just all the information that we're bombarded with every day. It's like infobesity. You can't even comprehend and chomp through all of it, right? And so basically, the collective knowledge of all the people in the world, there's so much there that the gap is widening, even though slowly over time, IQs of people have actually been going up, right? Probably because we have access to this information. We still have this widening gap. So if I asked you to think about, and this is where critical thinking comes in, if I ask you to think about something really simple and said, should we put a stop sign or a traffic light at this busy intersection in town where we know a couple of people have been killed, where people have, plowed through, and you think for a second and go, why not? I can easily make that decision. But if I ask you if Brexit is a good idea, that takes a lot of thought and a lot of research. And when we don't want to do a lot of thought and a lot of critical thinking and a lot of research to really weigh the pros and cons of it, what we do is we rely on our intuition when we don't know what truth is. So we rely on our own personal truth, right? Or our intuition or our gut feel. And so we've moved from I think, therefore I am, to I believe, therefore I must be right. Okay? And it makes it just worse. So as we think about this post-truth world and we think about we're a room full of honest liars, the people who are taking our survey, is our data reliable, right? So we have automation, but automation's probably only good to help you visualize what you think is the truth, but if it's not the truth, we've got a problem. So when I take us back on a stroll through memory lane and how we used to do research at Procter & Gamble, and some of you will nod, we went face-to-face with people. We went door-to-door. We knocked on their doors. This was consumer research in its infancy. And we talked to women at the time, and we would say, hey, we got a new laundry detergent for you to try. Can we give you that laundry detergent, have you try it for a couple of weeks, and then come back and ask you about your experience with that? And of course, they would opt into doing the study. And we would go back a couple weeks later and we would have a conversation with them, and we were nose to nose and toes to toes with that person, and they were telling us what they thought about our product. And then we moved to today. So now a lot of our research is done via the internet. Even our product studies, we're mailing those products out to consumers, we're having them test them, and then they're filling out a survey afterwards, letting us know about their experience with the product. And so we're exchanging that via the internet. And this is a multi-billion-dollar industry with lots of people, signing up. They're actually being advertisements saying, you're getting paid lots of money to do research, right? And so people sign up to do the research. And we get instant data with online dashboards. That's automation, right? So we have these online dashboards that can chomp through the data, or it can give you pretty graphs or whatever, and it makes our lives easy, and we can get to fast insights. And then we also use artificial intelligence, right, to do that. But do you know who's taking your survey? So I have a video here, and I'll explain what you're looking at. If you haven't heard of a mobile click farm, you're about to be introduced. This is what looks like a clothesline, for lack of better words. It's racks of mobile phones or iPads that are hooked up and connected back to one mainframe computer where one person is operating all of these iPads to input likes on Facebook. And this was captured, the Chinese government discovered this underground operation in Taiwan, and it's probably not the only place that it's taking place. And they're actually clicking to artificially inflate the reviews or inflate the likes on certain products that they want to try to sell. Okay, so I'll share the video so you can see what's going on here. And you can see the screens change as you go by. She even blew you a kiss, right? So this whole setup, they're running from one main computer, and they're clicking on different pages and artificially inflating the likes, okay, on a Facebook page. So what's stopping them from doing the same thing and taking your survey with all those iPads? It's a little scary to think that could be the data that's coming into your survey. So what do we have? We have honest and engaged panelists who really want to give us their honest truth. We have some disengaged panelists, and we'll get to them later, right? We wear them out with our long surveys, et cetera, and then they kind of poop out on us and don't answer honestly as they go through. And then we have outright dishonest panelists, right? Those are the people who are mobile click farms, the ultimate survey bot, this 2.0 here. You can look this up on Google. And you can actually buy a survey bot to take as many surveys as possible for you. And it just automatically takes surveys and collects incentives. This is what is comprising our survey data. So the question is what percentage is comprised of each of these, right? And so we actually know that from research and ComScore, this is going way back to 2006, 0.25% of the panelists complete 30% of surveys, and 20% of panelists are completing 80% of surveys. This was in 2006. Between 8 and 25% of panelists are disengaged or frauds, and that actually lines up with what I'm seeing in my research. And more than half of the internet traffic comes from automated bots, and that was just in 2016. And so there's been lots of research on research done to confirm some of this. But our business decisions really rely on us having reliable consumer data. And all automation is doing for you, if you don't know if your data is reliable, is getting you to the wrong answer faster, unfortunately. So what does our data look like? So I've done some studies. What percentage is comprising each one of these categories? So I have some evidence of compromised data, and I'm not going to share everything. But in 2014, my colleague and I, we built an online survey to gather data from 1,000 panelists, and we asked them to register to do ongoing surveys with us. And we got hacked by a survey bot, and 30% of our data was generated by a survey bot. The person wrote a program to take our survey over and over and over again, and we were able to detect it. There were patterns in the behavior. They were setting up different email accounts. They would say Yahoo account. It would have an English word with maybe 5-digit number at yahoo.com. Same kind of thing. And we were asking them what state they lived in. We were asking them what region they lived in. And then we were asking their age and whether they were male or female. And so we had Robert, who was age 35, who lived in California, but he lived on the East Coast, and that just didn't make sense to us. We started seeing this pattern. And then we were helped out by a buddy, because for every bad survey person, there might be a good hero. And we had a hero send us screenshots and said, he is China's biggest liar. He has hacked into your survey. He's trying to get money and extort money from you from doing your surveys. And he sent us screenshots. So somebody hacked him and narked on him and told us. But we would have done survey after survey if we hadn't caught this person, with 30% of our data being garbage, okay? Panelists aren't always brand aware. This does not mean that they're lying and being dishonest, right? We've had cases where people say, I use Tresemme, and we ask them to take a picture, and it's Pantene Expert, but they both come in a black bottle. So just because we're brand aware doesn't mean that everyone else is brand aware. We're making that assumption, right? But what we did was we asked people in this study to actually tell us what brand they were using to wash their hair and condition their hair, and we had an open-ended. We didn't give them a pick list, and they had to type it in. And then on the next page where they couldn't back up, we asked them to send us a picture. I went down through 3,000 pictures, and I learned that about a quarter of the people who claimed to use Pantene weren't really using Pantene. At that time, our study was focused on Pantene. So if we were trying to upgrade our Pantene product, and we were trying to determine and make our business decision, did our Pantene loyalists really like it, or did they hate it and we were going to turn them off? And if they tried our upgraded product, would they walk away from us at shelf? And I was basing it on that 25% or 26% of those people weren't really Pantene users. It's eye-opening, I know. I don't like to be the Grim Reaper, but there are things you can do, and I will share that. And then overstated product usage. In a recent study that we just did last year, we asked people, and it was males and females, what skincare products they use at least once a week or more often. And I know, men, you probably won't admit to this, but you use facial masks more often than women, and eye treatments just as often. I don't know about you, my husband must be hiding it when I'm not home, when he's using it. But then I started thinking, well, maybe they are using facial masks a little more often than women. And they're wearing those masks and masquerading to be women to get into our studies. There are a lot of blog boards out there where people say, well, if you're just a female with 2 kids and you're 35 to 50 years old, you can get in more studies and make more money. There are blog boards where panelists talk about this sort of thing. So what's the observation? Our data is being compromised and we're making inaccurate business decisions. And I have the business decisions that were disrupted. I have the data behind it, but I don't want to share that because it's proprietary to P&G, but we do know it's happening. And automation only helps us get to the wrong insight faster, right? You may want to delegate some of the work to automation, but you can't delegate the thinking. Do not delegate your thinking to automation. You have to critically think about what's here. And I think automation makes it harder to detect because you can't lift the hood and look at the engine, right? Sometimes it gives you a pretty cover and allows you to do a lot of things, but if you're analyzing bad data and you can't see the raw data, you're in for the wrong business decision. So how do we resolve the issues to enable our consumer research to better inform our business decisions and even with a smaller base size, we've proved that as well. We don't need the big base size. If a lot of it is noise, right, if we extract the noise from the data, we can do it with a smaller base size, okay? So what can you do now? There are several things that you can do. We identified 3 areas for improvement, and one is in panelist recruitment, one is in survey design and execution, and the other one is in data cleaning on the back end. So I'll just give you a few tips, and then I'll give you some resources to go to as well if you have more interest. Recruitment, use visual cues. As I had mentioned, this woman gave me a picture of what she thought was Tresemme. She told me she used Tresemme, but she really just used, Pantene Expert. Black bottle, looked the same to her. She didn't know. And maybe she does use Tresemme, but she accidentally bought Pantene Expert because it was a black bottle, and she just running through the store, kids in cart throwing stuff in, right? I don't know the truth to that. But we want to use visual cues, and we found in our businesses that if we give them visual cues, maybe we're showing them forms of deodorant, we're showing them pictures of that, are they better able to tell us, oh yeah, that's the one that I use, right? You give them pictures, or you give them brand images. Ask for photographic evidence. Like I said, I asked her to give me a picture. Was she really using Pantene, right? If you're looking for users, even in qualitative research, there's no reason why you can't pre-screen your panelists using the platforms that we have and have them tell you about their favorite hair care product or tell you about whatever it is and have them show it to you. Ask for that video evidence before you go to that research. Make sure you're getting the right person. Leverage your technology in survey design. So you can do things to kind of mitigate having bots in your survey. There are questions that you can ask. Bots tend to not like open-ends, but there's also something called a honeypot. And a honeypot is a question that you can program into your survey, and it takes some custom scripting. But basically, the honeypot is a hidden question to the actual human observer who's taking the survey. They can't see it, but a bot trips up on that and answers that question. So if that question's answered, you would automatically remove those people from your data. Again, that's called a honeypot. You can look it up online. Survey design. Provide an engaging, short, mobile-friendly survey, right? People don't have a lot of time. I think I read somewhere that a goldfish attention span is 9 seconds and the humans is 8 or something like that. So in order to keep them engaged, you don't want to have a long survey. And I know it's hard because you think, I may never run this research again. If I collect it all and then I can model with it or whatever, you'll run research again, right? So try to keep those to be mobile friendly and include some quality control checks to verify if somebody's paying attention. And I'll give you an example. We had a consistency check that we put in a survey, and we did it in 3 regions, China, Japan, and the US. And we asked at the very beginning of the survey, may I have your age, please? Open-ended, so they had to type a number in. After they answered our few questions that we had in our survey at the end, we had demographics again, and we asked them for their age. There were a lot of them who had time machines and became younger or older. They were able to go to the future or go back. In the China survey, we had, I'm trying to remember the percentage, I think it was about a quarter of the people either got older or younger. And so either our survey was really long and they had a birthday while they were taking it, or they had a time machine. But it just didn't add up, right? We asked them as well, and this was a single punch. We asked what location, what city do you live in China? And they were able to punch their city, and they weren't punching the same city at the end. So we either had a bot in the survey or we had people who were disengaged by the end. And at what point in the survey did they become disengaged? Where's my data bad? What should I keep? None. I can't keep any of it because I don't know where they became disengaged and I don't know what the truth is. So panelist disengagement across the globe, we've run some studies in Asia and in the US. It's fairly consistent. Our quality check failure rate is around 15% in China, Japan, and the US. So we know at least people are either disengaged or outright just speeding through the survey at some point. But this is kind of what we've learned just recently. This was just in the fall of last year. Another thing that you want to do is verify your product usage. So if you gave people something to use, right, and you want to know if they really used it, can you get a video recording or picture of their usage occasion, right? Can they show you that they used it? Live observation, can you bring them into in-person research in-context facility, right, or sensory panels or something like that where we can watch? Electronic tracking, right? Can you use electronic tracking device like a consumption monitor of some sort to know how much they used? Can you use the Internet of Things or Wi-Fi connected devices or QR codes that they scan when they use a product? How do you know that they're really using what you gave them to use? We actually had a project probably 6 or 8 years ago, and it was some sort of device project that we were having women use, and they were using it for about 6 months, and every 4 weeks they would come back and we would have qualitative interviews with them, and they would tell us what they thought of the product and their experience. And we had a woman who kept coming back, and at the end of the study, she told us that she was going on Shop MSN trying to find something similar. She just couldn't stand to give it back to us. She loved it so much. She just really needed something as a replacement. And we had an electronic chip in that we knew every time that device was turned on and turned off, and she only turned it on and off the very first time when we gave it to her in July, but she continued to come for the incentive and gave us fictitious feedback, not knowing, and we asked them that she be removed from the panelist database and not ever. I said, you can give her to L'Oreal or Revlon or J&J, but P&G doesn't want her back, right? So we asked that she be removed. And that is one piece. Give feedback to the suppliers. Tell them you don't want to pay for a lemon, right? You would do that if you bought a car and it fell apart the day you drove it off the lot, right? So make sure that you're doing that. And then confirm that your panelist received whatever it was. If you mailed something to them to try, make sure that they received it. I put an open-end in the survey asking them to enter a code off the product or something off the label or take a picture. I want to make sure that they used it so that I know that they had the right product, because a lot of people we find are participating in more than one product study at a time. And they'll send you a picture of something else, and then you don't want their data. And then for the people who slip through, we need to clean the data at the end, because there will be people who slip through, and that's why I say don't trust automation to do this for you. You want to actually critically think. Don't delegate to automation. And don't delegate your brain and your thinking. Check your data before you commence analysis, because compromised data is not uncommon, even with qualified panelists. So we screened people. They passed our disengagement checks. We placed product with them. They took our after-use survey, and 10% of them failed the quality checks in the after-use survey. So we thought we had good, solid sample coming in, and lo and behold, we still lost 10% of our data on the backside. And so knowing that, and knowing what you know now, you're armed and dangerous, you can at least start thinking about what can I do to make sure that I'm getting good, solid data. And I will tell you that there's a company called Elevated Insights, and they're out of Colorado, and they wrote a white paper on this called Beating the Cheaters. And it will give you lots of other ideas for what you can do to make sure that you're getting good data, and also, and not just in a quantitative aspect. I'm doing quantitative today because this is about automation, and a lot of this is quantitative, but also in quals. How do we recruit people? How do we screen them? How do we make sure they are who they say they are? And then last but not least, I noticed that we always say trust but verify. I verify, then trust, okay? When you're getting a new supplier, you're trying out a new tool, you need to go in and run a pilot and really scrutinize the data that comes out of that pilot from all ends, and almost go in with the lens that you think a crime has happened, right? And then make sure that it's solid and it's sound, and give the suppliers feedback. You know, if it's not working as intended, give them feedback. They want to partner, they want to sell it to you. You have to be a partner with your supplier. But I don't say, you know, trust but verify. I say verify and then trust, because you have to do that. We have a recent example. My colleague was talking about it in the car yesterday, and she said, this actually leads into your talk. She said, we were trying out one of the platforms that takes video and transcribes it via machine learning, right, or artificial intelligence, and then creates word clouds and makes it easy for us to take that unstructured data and make it more structured so we can analyze it. And she said we went back through the transcripts and watched the video, and it was only 30% accurate. I hate to leave you with that, but I will tell you that there are best practices out there. I'm giving you Elevated Insights, Beat the Cheaters. There's a webinar also on the GRIT. They actually did a webinar, so they have some discussion. If you look back through GRIT Report and you look for Beat the Cheaters by Elevated Insight, you'll be able to watch that video. I think it's 45 minutes to an hour. It's well worth it. And there's plenty of white papers out there, but it'll give you ideas on what you can do to make sure that you get good data. And with that, I thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Tia. Fascinating and scary. We have a question from Brian.
Hi, Tia. Great presentation. This is Brian Lamar from EMI Research Solutions. Again, great presentation. I share your concerns. I'm especially excited that someone from a client-side researcher is presenting this, because I think most client-side researchers are unaware of at least the breadth of the issues that we face. And you talked a lot about solutions. I'm curious if you feel there's an industry-wide solution that we can do, because we're honestly playing a game of whack-a-mole on the supply side. As soon as we come up with fixes to stop a lot of the bot farms and the cheaters and improve engagement with respondents, they learn ways of circumventing. So I would love to hear your thoughts on more industry-wide solutions.
Yeah. So I exactly share that with you. You know, and I think part of the reason they find out ways to figure out how to beat the system, right? We come up with a trap, and they figure out a way to trip the trap and get through the trap, right? And I think that's going to continue to happen. And one of the reasons that I think that happens is because we like to share as an industry. And there are white papers everywhere, and so we tell what those best practices are, and the people who are tripping those traps or trying to skip the traps are reading those white papers. So we're telling them what we do, and then they're finding a way to beat what we do. They know what to look for, right? And so, for instance, one of the things where we were talking about the consistency checks, and we were talking about asking the trap questions for quality purposes, please select strongly disagree for this line or whatever. They kind of know, we call those red herrings, and they know that those red herrings are going to be there. So they'll pass the red herring and then start speeding through the survey. I would say one thing that I've been talking about is putting page timers on every single page, because people have gotten past the page, the amount of time it takes to take the survey. They'll speed through it, take it in 2 minutes, sit on the last page and not hit submit, go surf the internet, hit submit later. It looks like they've taken 15 minutes to take your 15-minute survey, when in actuality they did it in 2 minutes. So if you put a page time on every single page, or you know, you have a start time, and maybe the next to the last page, then you subtract and see how long they spent, you'll find that they didn't spend that much time and that they zipped right through. And they know that they don't straight line anymore. They kind of, zigzag through, right? But the consistency checks seem to catch them. Because in the China, Japan, and US study that we did, we found that there were a handful of people, maybe 15%, that were failing the red herrings. And then we had the consistency check on age or location, and we had 36% of them fail at least one, either the age or location check. But the red herring question was only able to catch about 18% of those people. So the consistency checks worked very well, whereas the red herrings not so much. But I think if you have a combination of a couple of those things in there, and then the page timer, I can't say enough about putting a page timer on there, right? Not just start and end time, but a time on each page that they spent. And then have a few members of your team take that survey, and then take their average total time and think about how much time they spent on each page in their total time, and then kind of remove people based on that, right? And I think they need to be quarantined. I think we have to give the feedback, right? I used to be an internal supplier for the consumer research at P&G. We had some facilities that I ran, and I would kick people out if I knew they were lying. And I had my recruiters were trained to talk to them on the phone. And if somebody told us they used everything, it's just not possible. It would be too low incidence. And then they would say, well, I used all the products. Why didn't I qualify? And then we said, I'm sorry, ma'am. Today we're looking for non-users to talk to. Well, she'll think twice about lying next time, right?
Not everyone is as hardcore as you are.
Yeah, no, but I'm giving you ideas.
Hey, Brian, see if you can throw it towards the back.
So just to kind of tag on I think a more provocative question that we have as an industry, especially for the client side of us, which is, I think there are solutions out there to really work on verifying who people are to avoid the click farms and the whatnot. Here's the hard truth. It's going to cost us more money. But otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to continue to feed into, hey, what's the greatest cheap sample you can get? But then, okay, so then 20% of your data is crap. So I think there's some solutions, whether that's some of these verities or, do we start heading down the blockchain technology path that's being discussed. I think ultimately, though, we're going to have to realize that cheap sample, sometimes you get what you pay for.
Absolutely.
So, thanks.
Yeah, and when Charlie says that, you get what you pay for, like I said, do you really need 300 people to fill out your survey? If you get 100 honest people, that's better than 300 if 2/3 of the 300 are dishonest, right? Because your noise is what's clouding your data.
So the question that I have is the following. We have known for many years now that there are these, flatliners, these people that don't pay attention to, that give the same score, et cetera, et cetera. And you kind of mentioned that you are considering lowering base size, right? But you didn't give us any hints on what ballpark of reduction you are entertaining. Could you share, some thought starter for us to do our own digging on that regards? Base size reductions, principles, et cetera?
So you're asking what are some of the things that we do to actually be able to reduce base size?
Right.
Yeah. So one of the pieces, definitely is to, partner with your suppliers and start taking out people that are, quarantining people that are doing this. And when I ran our research facility, anybody who lied or were dishonest or the team members gave me feedback, they came out of the database and they never got back in, right? Our show rate was 95% without floaters on a going basis for 500 studies a year. And the people who were coming in were honest, were showing up, were engaged, were doing their homework, were really participating because they wanted to participate. So that's one. So I think feedback to the suppliers is a huge one. We're the paying customer. And the problem is we're paying for, 25 to 30% of our data to be garbage. And so if we're the paying customer and we know we're going to go to another supplier if the supplier is not trying to put measures in place, right? But I think that if you're starting to get the truth from people, and you don't have the noise in your data anymore, you can reduce the base size, right? My statistician looked at some of the data and said, look, we're seeing, deltas of 10 points on some of our product studies that we never saw before, just when we take the garbage out. And he said, you know what, we could make an argument to reduce the base size and still get good sensitivity as long as the noise isn't in there, but the noise has started to overwhelm the signal. Right? And so I think one of the big ones is working with the suppliers. I think there's a piece where, there's new suppliers coming out who have, what they call trust scores, or they have how they vet. I think opening the hood and looking under the hood and saying, let me see the engine. How do you recruit your panelists, and how do you make sure they're not fraudulent, and what steps are you taking? I ask those questions when I'm talking to suppliers. I want to believe that who they're giving me is true, but then again, I still verify. I still watch them. And we've tested different suppliers against each other, and we do this regularly, and we look to see how engaged people are, and are they giving us honest answers? Do the ages, the consistency checks match it? Are the people passing the red herrings? And we compare sample suppliers, and we choose our sample supplier based on that, right? Is that helpful? Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
We have another question.
Oh,
See if you can throw it over
one
there.
over here.
We'll make this the last question.
You, excuse me. You mentioned a few things that you do when you're picking a supplier for sample, such as, the guardrails, asking how they recruit their panelists, what steps they're taking, and you analyze how engaged are their respondents. Are there any other things that you ask the suppliers? Because I feel like I've asked these questions before and I get really high level answers, and I don't really get the answers that I'm looking for.
Another question that I ask them is if they own their own panel, how big it is, and are they always able to accommodate from their own panel database? And a lot of them buy from sample suppliers, okay? And then that's only going to be as good as those sample suppliers are guarding, right? So, if you go to a big company, sometimes they supplement by reaching out to another sample supplier, for instance, Lightspeed, SSI, and so on. The big companies don't have a database large enough, so they'll reach out to these other sample suppliers. And then you want to know what measures are they putting in place to make sure those sample suppliers aren't giving them, garbage panelists, for lack of better words, right? On any given day, you're still going to have a number of disengaged people get in for whatever reason. Their kids are running and screaming in the background or whatever. Dinner's boiling over on the stove while they're trying to take your survey. These things happen, right? Or you're starting to ask them a lengthy questionnaire where you're asking them about the fragrance of the product and you're having them rate it 6 different ways. Do we really need to rate it 6 different ways? How can we get down to the one right way to rate the fragrance, the one that's driving their appeal, right? So we own some of this too. This isn't always on the suppliers, right? We own cutting that questionnaire down and getting to the meat of what we want to learn. Another piece that I think is really important is, can you do quali-quant? Can you get 50 people and then follow up with 10 or 12 of them and do qualitatives? I always had a prominent PhD consumer psychologist that I worked for in the company who said, after you talk to the 10th or 11th person, the next person won't give you anything you haven't heard from the first 10. So, that 10 to 12 is kind of that round figure of the number of people you need to talk to before you're kind of tapped out on going to hear the same things over and over again. So I always say, I always read all of my verbatims. I don't do word clouds. It's unreal what they will tell you in the open ends that you didn't think to ask. And people use a word cloud. I don't use a word cloud. I never use a word cloud. If I just sit down for an hour and read all the open ends, I got a good sense for whether they liked my product or not, or my idea, right? So yeah, I think you just have to kind of peck away at it, chisel away at it. And there's a lot of good ideas, as I had mentioned in the Beat the Cheaters webinar, because they opened the floor for other people. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And people shared some of the things that they do as well.
Tia, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing
Sure.
that.